Hey y'all, in today's video, I'm going to be sharing some party appetizer ideas. The Super Bowl's this weekend, so I know that a lot of people are searching for these types of recipes, and I always really enjoy putting together these types of videos because I just love this kind of food. I don't care what the occasion is, it's just always fun. So I am going to be including 4 recipes, and not only are they all easy, but I truly believe that these are all crowd pleasers. So let's jump on into it. We're starting off strong with these buffalo chicken jalapeno poppers. I'm already going to go ahead and say that these were my number one favorite thing from this entire video. These are incredible. So I'm starting off with 6 large fresh jalapenos. I gave them all a really good rinse, and then I'm just going to get each of those cut in half. And then I'm just taking a small spoon and I'm just scraping out all of the seeds and that membrane over a small bowl. I feel like so many people make this look so easy, and it is easy, but I just feel like it takes me forever to do this. But this is the only step, for me anyways, it takes a little bit of time. And yes, I am wearing gloves because the winter is brutal on my skin and my hands are cracking. I didn't want that jalapeno juice to burn me. So anyways, now that I got all of those prepped and ready, I'm going to start on the buffalo chicken mixture. So you need a half a cup of some cooked and shredded chicken. So I just pulled that off of a rotisserie chicken from Walmart, and I'm just going in with a small knife and just chopping that into smaller pieces. I knew that would work better to stuff the jalapenos. So I'm going to get that transferred to a small little mixing bowl. And then I'm going to add in a half a cup of some shredded sharp cheddar cheese. We're also going to need a half a block or 4 ounces of some cream cheese. I did let that set out to room temperature first. You're going to need a 1/4 cup of your favorite buffalo sauce. I'm just using some Frank's Mild. And then you can either use ranch or blue cheese. I used ranch, and you need a couple tablespoons. The recipe does call for green onions. I always replace that for some freeze-dried chives, and I really did like the addition of that in this. And then I just went in with some salt, pepper, and some garlic powder, and that is it ingredient-wise for this recipe. So as you can see, I'm just getting all of that folded together until it looked nice and combined just like this. So at this point, I can start stuffing the jalapenos. So this went really quick. That filling made the perfect amount for this amount of peppers. And something else that I really love about this recipe is that these get cooked in the air fryer. So it's super convenient. But, if you don't have an air fryer, that is completely fine. You can obviously, bake these in the oven. You could even grill them. But yeah, here they are all stuffed. I'm going to transfer those to my air fryer baskets, and I'm going to let these cook at 375 degrees for about 10 minutes. You want those peppers to be tender to your liking, and you want the filling to be like bubbly and golden, just like this. You do want to let these rest for a few minutes before transferring them to a serving dish, or else that filling will just slide right on out. I had that happen to a couple of mine. But yeah, I brought these over to my father-in-law's house, and he's someone that does not eat peppers or jalapenos, and he could not stop eating these. So that's very telling of how delicious these are. Not only is it perfect for get-togethers, but it's just something I can see myself recreating all the time for just like a simple lunch. These are crazy, crazy good. Next up, I'm going to be making some salted caramel pretzel Oreo balls. So we're going to start by making a homemade salted caramel sauce. I have never made any type of like homemade caramel. So you just start with a cup of sugar. You just pour that into a saucepan, cook it over a medium heat, and you're basically just melting down that sugar. It's going to turn this deep caramel color. And then the second it is fully melted, you want to drop in 4 tablespoons of some salted butter. Now, the recipe did say for that butter to be at room temperature. I did not plan far enough in advance, so I just used cold butter, and it still came out great. As soon as that butter is melted, you're going to add in a half a cup of some heavy whipping cream, just a little bit at a time, stirring the whole time. And it also says for that to be at room temperature. I did let that sit out for about 20-25 minutes, I'd say. So once you get all that heavy cream added, you let it cook for about a minute, and then you remove it from the heat. We're going to add in 3/4 of a teaspoon of vanilla and 3/4 of a teaspoon of sea salt. So just going to get all of that incorporated, and then I'm just going to let this sit here and cool down. So the next step, we're going to grab some Oreos. As you can see, these are just normal, regular Oreos. They're not double stuffed or anything. And you're going to need 36 cookies. So I got those counted out, added to my food processor, and I'm just going to let that pulse until these are in really fine crumbs. So once they reach that point, I'm going to transfer that on over to my KitchenAid mixer bowl. And then I'm going to grab some pretzels. It can be any kind of pretzels. The shape doesn't matter, but I measured out 2 cups and got that crushed in that food processor as well. And then that's just going to get dumped into that same bowl with the Oreos. Next, I'm going to grab an 8-ounce block of room temperature cream cheese. Going to get that plopped in there, and I'm going to use my paddle attachment to my KitchenAid to get all of this mixed together. Now, I have made like regular Oreo balls for many years, and I've never thought to mix it in my KitchenAid, and I'm going to stick to that method because I truly think it was the best way to really mix that cream cheese throughout. So now I'm just going to grab my smallest cookie scoop, and I'm just going to start plopping out my Oreo, pretzel, and cream cheese mixture right onto this parchment lined cookie sheet. I worked with about 12 of these at a time. That way I had enough room to do what I needed to do. And then once I got them rolled up, I just kind of scooted them over and then finished off all the dough that was in that bowl. But basically, once I get 12 of them plopped out, I'm just going to roll them in between the palms of my hands to form like a tighter ball. And then I flatten them out. And the reason that I'm flattening them out is because we are going to be stuffing some of that homemade salted caramel sauce right into the middle of each one of these discs. So once that caramel cooled down for about 15 minutes, I went ahead and transferred that on over to a glass jar. You know, this is going to make way more than what you need for this recipe, but you can just store it in the fridge and use it for different things. Like it can be a topping for ice cream. You can pair it with brownies, just anything you would need a salted caramel sauce for. I actually use a little bit in my coffee, and that was really good as well. But yeah, after you let it cool down a bit, it's going to help it kind of solidify a little bit more so that when you plop it onto the Oreo balls, it's not just going to like run everywhere. I do think that I added a little bit too much because I did have a little bit of a difficult time rolling these up, but I just didn't sweat about it, didn't stress. But I got all of those rolled up, and I let those go in the freezer for about an hour. Now, I actually ended up finishing these the next day because I was making those Oreo balls kind of late at night, and I got tired. So I ended up transferring those to my fridge, and then now I'm going to start dipping them into this vanilla almond bark. I really like using that in recipes because I just think it melts down really good. Really like the flavor of it. So I just simply melted half of that package in the microwave. I just followed the directions on the back of that package. And yeah, it melts really nicely, as you can see. And I really like to use a fork. That way I can kind of tap and, you know, shake off that excess chocolate. That way it doesn't like pull up too much at the bottom. I like to use a toothpick to kind of help me scoop that off onto the parchment paper. Now, you can either use parchment paper or wax paper. Both work really well for recipes like this. And, you know, anytime I've ever used this almond bark, I've noticed like it sets up really quick. Like, takes no time at all to just be able to pick one of these up and start eating them. But lastly, I'm just taking some more of that salted caramel sauce, and I'm just using a spoon to do my best to drizzle it over each one of these just to make a cute little design. I have never been good at drizzling anything. I'm truly not the best candy maker, like visually, but it's never going to stop me from doing it. So as soon as these were ready to be picked up, I just transfer them to a nice serving tray. And yeah, I have a really big sweet tooth, and anytime I have like any type of party or get together, I always make sure that there's at least like one treat. And I always think it's great to have something like grab and go, you know, nothing that you have to cut, but these came out so good. I also feel like if you're going to have some sort of get together, you've got to have some sort of dip. So I'm going to be making a chorizo cheese dip in the Crockpot. So you start by just cooking up a pound of chorizo. I have just recently started cooking with chorizo. In my last video, I made a chorizo gravy to go over biscuits, and it was so good, but it was really spicy. So I've been experimenting with different brands of sausage to buy, and I really did like this one from Kroger. It was much more mild, much more suitable for us, but definitely let me know down in the comments, like, what's your favorite brand of chorizo? So anyways, after I got that cooked and the grease drained, I transferred it to a greased crock pot. I threw in a block of cubed cream cheese, about a pound of some cubed Velveeta. I did use the queso blanco one, even though I feel like it tastes identical to the regular. I also did 1 can of some mild Rotel, juice and all. I also decided to do a good handful of some shredded sharp cheddar cheese, and I did a good splash of heavy cream. Now, I looked at several different recipes for this, and I was trying to find the one that was best for us, and nothing was really like standing out, so I decided to just combine a bunch of different ones into one. So I will write out the recipe for this in my description box. I just kind of made it my own, you know. But yeah, I covered that with a lid, and I let this cook on low for a couple of hours. Obviously, you just want everything to be melted, nice and hot and steamy, and give it a good stir. Now, something I really liked about this was how thick it was. You know, with dips that are similar to this, a lot of times they can be like super runny, and you put it on your plate with all of these different things, and it's just running into everything and makes everything soggy. This one does not do that. I know it's similar to your typical like Crockpot queso, but we honestly like this version so much more. It was amazing. Lastly, I'm going to be making some BLT sliders. So this right here is my favorite bacon, just the Fisher's bacon. I feel like it cooks up so good and crisp every single time. We love it. So that's typically what I buy. And I did go ahead and just take some scissors and cut that package in half because I want to work with half pieces of bacon since I am doing a slider recipe. And I chose to fry this up in my electric skillet. Pretty much because of the size of it, the width of it, I knew that it would hold more than what like a typical skillet would. A lot of times I just cook my bacon in the oven. That's a really good method, but I don't know. I guess I just felt like doing it the old-fashioned way this particular night. But yeah, I just stood there and cooked up the bacon. Now, I know this is an extremely basic idea, but I wanted to include it for anyone who's looking for something like quick and last minute. And, you know, a lot of people love BLTs. It's like one of my favorite things. When I go to the cookout, you know, the restaurant, I almost always get the BLT. And it's just so basic, but it hits every single time. So anyways, my bacon's cooked up. Got it drained on a paper towel lined plate. These are the King's Hawaiian rolls that I'm going to be using. I'm using the savory butter ones over the original. And the way I like to do it is I like to break that package in half. That way I'm working with 2 smaller sections. And I'm just taking my serrated knife and getting these split in half. Usually for me, this is a complete disaster, but it actually went pretty smoothly this time. So I'm just going to get this rearranged on a parchment lined cookie sheet. I do have my oven preheated to 350 degrees, so I'm just going to pop this tray in there for about 7 to 8 minutes. That way I can toast up all of those Hawaiian rolls. So we are a big Duke's Mayo fan, so I'm going to add that to the top buns. I'm only going to be doing this to half of them though, because yes, this is a party video, but in reality, this was just a normal dinner for my little family, and my kids are not going to eat like mayo and lettuce and tomato and all that, so I'm keeping theirs plain. That's okay. So now to the bottom buns for us. I'm doing some sliced Roma tomatoes. I always season my tomatoes, so I'm just doing a little pinch of salt and black pepper. I also really like to pepper my mayo whenever I can think to do it. And now I'm just going to start taking that bacon and piling it on the tomatoes. So I ended up just doing like 2 half pieces per sandwich. Now, I will say, I do think you'd be better off like cutting the Hawaiian rolls into individual servings before you start adding the toppings, because it was a little bit tricky to cut these afterwards. So I would definitely do it that way next time. But here I am just piling some shredded lettuce over half of the sliders. Again, keeping the kids just plain. So I'm just going to get the tops added on, and then I just got them cut up and add it to one of my nicer cutting boards to serve it on. These aren't the prettiest sliders I've ever seen, but they sure were delicious. And I know personally, if I were to go somewhere and they had these, I'd be a happy girl. But that is going to end the video. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you all have the best weekend, and hopefully I will see you guys in my next video.